Hello, everybody, and welcome again to the show. Thank you for joining us. The Atheist Experience is live, September 28th, 2003. I'm your host, Martin Wagner. Ashley Perrien, my co-host, as always. We appreciate you tuning in on this sunny Sunday afternoon. Atheist Experience is sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. ACA has its weekly meetings every Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. at Hot Jumbo Bagels, which is downtown, 307 West 5th Street between Guadalupe and Lavaca, except for the first Sunday of each month when we have our lecture series in the Mayor Room of the Austin History Center at 9th and Guadalupe. At the first Sunday of October, we are actually not going to have our usual lecture series. It's going to be an ACA business meeting. And all members are encouraged to attend to talk about what we're going to do with the group in the upcoming year. However, it's possible that we may have a mid-month lecture by DJ Grothy, who is part of the Council for Secular Humanism and the Center for Inquiry, and he will be in town that weekend. And I think that Sunday is the 19th.
Saturday is 18. So it'll be on the 19th.
Yeah.
And it will be in the History Center.
So it's happening then?
Yes, it is happening. It's in the History Center. It's in the larger, it's next to the Mayor's Room.
Okay.
The Mayor's Room is relatively small. It's the one next to it, which is about twice the size.
All right.
We're going to be in there.
Oh, okay. So that is happening then, apparently.
Yes.
DJ Grothy on October 19th will be doing a lecture, I guess, talking about the Center for Inquiry and what its plans are and what it's all about. So that is an unusual deviation from our normal first Sunday of the month lectures. And, of course, the first Sunday of November, we will have lecture again. James D., I believe, is still scheduled to speak at that time. So that's how that goes. But anyway, if you want to find out information about that, you can visit our website and go to the upcoming events page. Other stuff going on with ACA, of course. Don't forget the Nonprofits, which is our bi-weekly internet radio show that plays on the atheistnetwork.com website. It's hosted by Jeff D. Other folks customarily appear, like Russell Glasser, Karen Glasser, Dennis Lubay, Jeff Jones, sometimes Vic Farrow if he's not working. A whole bunch of folks just come in and out. It's 90 minutes of news analysis and a whole lot of fun yelling back and forth. It is an MP3 stream live every other Saturday at 2 o'clock p.m. atheistnetwork.com is the website. The last episode, most recent episode, was yesterday, and so the next one will be Saturday after next, 2 Saturdays from now. And if you have a hard time at atheistnetwork.com hooking up to the MP3 stream there, Russell has also, on our website, on the radio show page, just attached a link to the direct feed from our website, too, on the radio show page. And there, on the same page, you can listen to about the last half dozen or so episodes that they've done. So, Nonprofits, bi-weekly on the internet, atheistnetwork.com, and they've got also an interactive chat room feature that runs during the show. Okay. And University Atheists and Agnostics, UT Student Organization, is now starting its third semester, and for more information about them, their website is studentorgs.utexas.edu/UAA, and they have weekly meetings every Friday at 4 p.m. in Garrison Room 200. So if you're a UT student or faculty member and happen to be an atheist, well, there's a group for you. And apparently it's been a successful one. So check that out for more information for UT student and faculty. Okay, Godless Gamers, of course, still going on every Monday night at 7 o'clock. Yeah, 7 o'clock at the home of Russell and Virginia Glasser, and ACA Happy Hour is Thursday evenings, about 7:30 or so. But people trickle in all evening, and that takes place at Antonio's Tex-Mex, which is near the intersection of Highway 183 and I-35. So, all kind of stuff going on. So that's it. If you've never watched this program before, we are here every Sunday, 4:30. This show's actually been on the air for a little over 6 years, 6.5 years, different time slots, but we've been here steadily all along. We're on for an hour and a half, and where we talk about atheism and religion and stuff like that. And it's a live call-in show, so if you've never watched us before, we take calls from folks like you. Might be interested in what atheism's all about, why people who don't believe in God don't believe in God, and... But keep in mind, if this is your first time to watch the show, You can visit our website. Again, it's atheist-community.org. On the website, we have a frequently asked questions page, a fact page, where we take the most common questions that we've gotten from callers over the last 6.5 years, and we've put them up there. And so it's possible if you've never encountered an atheist before, we've probably already answered some of your very basic questions there on the website fact. Also on our website, you'll find all kind of cool, some of the most recent information we've got up there is, this keeps, it's still timely and it's still worth talking about. The recent State Board of Education textbook hearings where the Discovery Institute, who like to claim that they aren't trying to put intelligent design in school textbooks, is trying to put intelligent design in school textbooks. And they had a big hearing, lasted all day, literally all day. And Russell and I and Steve Elliott and a few of our other people were there, and we spoke and we testified. And you will find, I think, the best and most comprehensive coverage about that event on our site in the past events page. So again, you check our website at atheist-community.org. You can read all our speech transcripts. You can hear audio MP3 files of speakers from both sides of the issue. And Russell has given his own sort of personal analysis of the thing. It's really great. It's worth reading. Worth knowing about what the intelligent design crowd is trying to pull lately. You know, it's interesting. The letters keep coming into the Austin Chronicle from intelligent design people and Discovery Institute people.
Okay.
And there was a guy who had a letter in this week's issue. And Amanda Walker, who's a biology teacher here locally, emailed me. It's like, I'm just so sick of this guy. She forwarded me a letter that she had written in response, and then I read his letter and I wrote a response.
Okay.
And that's already up on the Chronicle website.
Okay.
Although I don't know if it'll be in next week's issue. I hope so. But then another guy, and this is incredible, right? Another guy from, name's Crowther. I think Robert Crowther, who is a Discovery Institute person.
Okay.
Wrote in and just spouted out and out disinformation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, claiming that there's no push at all to introduce intelligent design in the classroom, when, you know, you can look at the Discovery Institute's own literature, and what they say is, our goal is to introduce intelligent design. I mean, it's as bold as life, right? And the most incredibly arrogant and stupid thing he said was just it amazed me, just how flagrant this was. You know, just you wonder how blatant do the lies get? They get exactly this blatant. The guy said something like, all that the Discovery Institute wants to do is defend science.
Oh, yeah.
Against guys like, you know, Richard Dawkins, who are just trying to, like, use science.
Dogmatically introducing evolution. And
He's say he's, like, using science to bash, you know, to discredit Christianity, which is dumb, right? Okay, you don't need to use science to discredit Christianity, right? Okay, it does a fine job of, you know, just
bashing
being
itself.
dumb on its own, right? But that's not what he uses this for, right? I mean, yes, now, Richard Dawkins is an outspoken unbeliever, and he's written a lot of, you know, editorials on that subject. But as far as biology is concerned, he's just, you know, he is an expert.
Yeah.
Okay, and he knows what he's talking about, and he's a zoologist. He's one of one of the leaders in his field, worldwide respected. Okay, he hasn't got a Nobel Prize, but he's still one of the leaders in his field. But just, you know, but it was just incredible how you know, just delusional.
Yeah.
And just what deliberate deception. I mean, for the Discovery Institute to claim to be defenders of science is hypocrisy of, like, the highest order, right? I mean, it's like NAMBLA opening a daycare center. You know, I mean, that's how
it's just them.
Ridiculous
It's just them putting forward the face, knowing that science is accepted by, you know, Joe Public. And so they've got to kind of, you know, play along with that and say, you know, okay, well, we're just trying to help scientists.
But they've declared war on science, and you can read their own literature, and they'll say it. So it's like, science has been really, really bad.
Say that.
But they have come out and said that, which is hilarious. And so now what the Discovery Institute people have to do is, like, spin. And they're like, we didn't really mean to say that we want to eradicate all science when we wrote that we want to eradicate all science. What we meant was something,
that was taken out of context.
Yeah, a little different, right? So it's just great. So I wrote another letter in response to that one, which is on the Chronicle website right now, where I just sort of like catalog, okay, lie, click, 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 click. It says, okay, the guy says this. Now here's all these direct quotes from their wedge strategy document. And so I'd like to see that one get in the print edition too. But I've never had a problem getting, you know, letters printed in the Chronicle. But you know, getting stuff printed in the Statesman is a little different. Although I did have one. I did get a letter printed in the Statesman about the Ten Commandments monument thing. But still, Crazy. These people. I mean, they will not. They just will not stop. It's a riot. So I'd like to encourage ACA members also. There's still some time before the next issue of the Chronicle comes out. I mean, you should get on the website, read this guy Crowther's letter. Yeah. Especially if you're part of our textbook team, and just respond. Right. They'll print your response if it's a good response. So anyway, but that's pretty much it for announcements. So. We're going to throw open the phones to callers here in about 15, 20 minutes or so, and we'll put the number up on screen in a few minutes. But for now, we're going to go to the news with Ashley and tell us what's happening in the world.
Okay. All right. First off, we have another fossil that was found. Actually, I think it was found a little while ago. It was actually found last year, 2002. But this was in Romania, and it's a jaw of a caveman living in what is now Romania is the oldest fossil from an early modern human to be found in Europe. Primitive features such as a heavy bone and tooth structure also support the controversial idea that Cro-Magnons and Neanderthals may have interbred. This bone is, 36,000 years old.
Right.
And that makes it the oldest definite early modern human specimen in Europe, and it provides perspective on the emergence and evolution of early modern humans in the Northwest Old World.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's just a very early one, and like I say, it shows that again, Neanderthals and Cro-Magnons typically they had some idea that they may have actually kind of worked together in certain traded and interbred and stuff like that, but they didn't really have any decent evidence of that.
Yeah.
Now they do.
It's interesting on the interbreeding thing. I mean, with the fossil being that old, is there any way that they can, I'm not a biologist, so I don't know this. So maybe somebody who is can tell me. But can they extract any from something that old, get any mitochondrial DNA or anything at all to confirm it? I would think. Well, if it's fossilized, I would think not. But.
Yeah, I would think not. I think they're going more on the shape and the structure and the thickness of it, that type of thing.
Yeah. But they don't. I mean, but right now they're speculating that this could be the case, but it's far from proven.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. This isn't solid 100%. Yeah. But it's definitely another piece of evidence.
Yeah. Because I know a lot of scientists have kind of put the kibosh on the idea that Neanderthals and early Homo sapiens interbred.
Yeah.
They say because there's no real evidence for that. And some of the literature I've read on that, did point to, well, there's nothing in the DNA that indicates it, which leads me to indicate that there's some way of getting Neanderthal DNA samples.
Yeah. And it is possible. I mean, they aren't that old, I guess. 34 to 36,000 years old. I mean, it is old. If it's truly fossilized, then I would expect that you can't get anything like that.
Yeah, because it's like stone.
Yeah, essentially.
But then again, we're not biologists. Maybe we're babbling. We don't know what we're talking about. But maybe somebody who is a biologist will know. But it's interesting all the same.
Yeah. So yet another piece of evidence. And actually, when I saw this, just recently, it wasn't that long ago, they found a different fossil. It was a skull, but I think that was down in Africa somewhere.
Africa.
And that was supposed to be one of the earliest human fossils ever found.
Yeah. Appears to be where we all came from.
So yeah, they're finding things fairly often now, apparently. Wow. Or at least too recently.
Huh.
All right. Next story here. This is about Brian Edgar. He was a 9-year-old, and his adoptive father, Neil Edgar, brought him to siblings of a 9-year-old boy who suffocated while wrapped mummy-style in duct tape. Wrapped up in duct tape.
Mummy,
Brian Edgar was already dead when his adoptive father, Neil Edgar, brought him from the family's rented home. This was late last year, December of 2002, and basically he was tied up from foot to head in duct tape.
That's just like, what?
And this was, now, Neil Edgar, the adoptive father.
My mind, I just can't think of a thing to say. I mean, it's so brain-boggling that anyone would be so psychotic as to even think of doing that.
Yeah. Let's see. Where is it here? I can't even find it.
So who did this to the little boy?
It was actually, I believe, the babysitter and the daughter, but it was kind of like under the father's instruction. and the father is one of these religious leaders of his little clan or something like that. And essentially he got inspiration from God that how you should punish children is by tying them up. And so they have a family.
From head to toe and duct tape? That's more than tying someone up. Yeah. I mean, that's like...
The other kids in the family, they're talking mostly about a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old. A 12-year-old son, 9-year-old daughter, and then this 9-year-old son. But the other children have also described that they had similar type things to where they were tied up for, they stole water out of the faucet.
How do you steal water out of a faucet? That's what faucets are there for.
According to the parents, they stole water from the faucet.
So their parents have some deranged rule that their children aren't allowed to drink water?
So they tie up their children. And this time they tied him up and killed him. And so what they did is essentially after they discovered this...
and people wonder why I'm not opposed to capital punishment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
like, I'll flip the switch on that woman right away.
Yeah.
It's like... That's just, there's no excuse. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
It's just
Williams,
amazing.
a 30-year-old mother of 9, said church members believe that God spoke to Kirsty Edgar, I think that's a mother, and had at one point gave her a new way to discipline children, tying them up. Earlier witnesses have said Brian had been dressed in a one-piece sleeper before he was wrapped in duct tape, and that the other Edgar children had helped clean up the tape that was removed from his body before he was taken to the hospital. They basically took off the tape, took off the one piece,
trying to get rid of the evidence,
the tape, and they burned it in the fireplace.
To get rid of
to get rid of it. Then they took him to the hospital, but he had long since been dead.
Yes.
So, it's just another one of these horrible stories of people who do
this sounds to me like this is an open and shut capital case.
Yeah.
If you ask me.
Yeah.
But is she pulling out the religion defense, maybe hoping that she can cop an insanity plea?
Yeah.
Or is that it?
It's possible. I don't know. It doesn't say anything specifically, in that direction in the story.
Yeah.
But
because it seems to me that's the only way that her lawyer could maybe, keep her out of at least, if not, the slab, but, having her in for life without parole. Yeah. It seems the only defense he could say is that this is probably some sort of religious delusion that she's in.
Yeah.
Kind of like what they tried to do.
Against the father. The father and possibly the...
the mother wasn't involved?
No, the mother I don't think was directly involved in any of this.
Okay. Was she even in the house? Was she around?
I'm not positive on that.
All right. Okay, so the dad, right. Well,
it was basically the dad's problem.
Okay.
He's the one who's basically in trouble here.
All right.
So, the dad and, the babysitter.
Yeah, but this is, it's kind of like what they tried to, how they tried to, get Andrea Yates off, or at least get her, a lightened sentence.
Yeah.
Now, although they didn't actually bring up the religious angle with Andrea Yates, although she did, the family was part of this, fire and brimstone fundamentalist congregation. Yeah. But it was the postpartum depression
that
excuse, which I know is like a real symptom that it's a thing that some women suffer from. But of course, most women who have postpartum depression don't drown 5 babies.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more to it than that. Yeah. But and I think in her case, the husband also bore a lot of responsibility because he knew his wife was like crazy. All the doctors are saying this woman shouldn't have any more children.
Yeah. He went ahead.
And he just didn't care, right? Because I guess his church is all about, let's just breed more little, parishioners. But in this case, again, so what is the name of this odd sect that they belong to that somehow they found some scripture that justifies wrapping a kid up in duct tape?
It doesn't, actually, here it is. Church founded by witness Tuesday concluded Chantel Williams, former member of the small Kansas City, Kansas church, founded and run by the Edgar adults. Neil Edgar served as a pastor of God's Creation Outreach Ministry, according to Williams and other witnesses.
So this is like one of these strip mall type tiny odd churches, kind of like the one a couple of weeks ago, right, where they beat that autistic child to death because they thought he was possessed by demons.
Yes,
they tried to exorcise his demons and ended up basically just beating the hell out of him, just beat him to death.
Yeah.
And it was one of these oddball little strip mall, tiny churches.
Yeah.
So it is,
3-year-old kid.
There's religious freedom is one thing, but when you have, clearly these cults can be extremely dangerous, and so.
Well, yeah, they even had the other case recently. I can't remember the details on it, but essentially it was the same type of thing where the parents, yes, they didn't take their kid into the hospital who was sick, and the child ended up dying, and they said in this state they have had other cases. And of this type of thing.
They prosecuted those parents, right? Didn't they?
Prosecuted I think they were going to.
Okay.
But they had said that they may get off because they had other cases in the past, I guess, of perhaps not that overt or that bad, where the parents had gotten off claiming, this is a religious practice or something.
Who cares if it's a religious practice,
exactly.
Right? If the net result is a dead child, right, that just indicts the religion along with the... But,
Exactly.
It's... what if they were Aztecs, right?
Yeah.
Oh, well,
we have to sacrifice our first daughter.
It was my religious practice to take my child up on the roof of my house and cut his heart out with a big obsidian dagger.
Yeah.
Sorry, you still killed somebody.
Yeah.
But I can think of at least one case now where there were two parents prosecuted for murder. Okay. Because they belong to one of these stupid little cults where they if you get sick, you're not supposed to go to a doctor or take any medicine of any kind. You just stay at home and pray and pray and pray and hope you get better, and you keep praying basically until you die.
Yeah.
And at which point
you didn't pray hard enough.
It was your fault because your prayers weren't you weren't praying sincerely enough, and and that's that sort of thing. So I don't know. I say. No, actually, I'd say life without parole for this guy. If I'm in the jury box, that's what I say.
Yeah,
because that's.
Yeah, that's just one of those things where
because that's the one
craziness.
I think the one valid argument that I've heard against, really solid argument against capital punishment. And I know that there are moral ones, but an even more practical argument is life without parole is worse.
Yeah,
because you kill somebody, basically that's it, they're dead, and Yeah. And but you stick them in a cell for 23 hours a day for the remainder of their, for the next 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
That's punishment.
Yeah.
And then they die at the end of that. So, so it's like, so that's worse punishment. So I say life without parole is probably better.
So that's.
But it sounds like this is going to be another case where they're going to try to but this is our religious belief. We didn't mean to do it. It was an accident, we did deliberately wrap him up like a mummy in duct tape, but we didn't mean to kill him.
Yeah.
It's like, gee, officer, I didn't know the gun was loaded. Sorry.
And the other kids have had the same. It doesn't sound like they had it quite as bad as this.
Well, at least.
But the other kids had been tied up fairly often.
Hopefully the good thing that will come out of this. Hopefully the good thing that will come out of this is that these kids will be taken away by Child Protective Services. Yeah. And they'll get to be in decent foster homes, and they won't have to be brought up and indoctrinated into this disgusting cult.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that could be some good that came out of this, because sad to say, but if that little boy hadn't been killed, then this practice would keep going on, and they would be torturing these kids, all the way up until age 18, in which case, they're just mental, they're nuts, they're mental cases. And
he's a pastor, so he's obviously, a high level person in his church, and so who knows what other families are, saying, well, he does it, so that's what God told him to do.
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
Can never tell. But
I do not, there is a First Amendment issue where, with freedom of religion and freedom to practice your own beliefs and what have you, that obviously we cannot, because this is a free country, have any sort of real monitoring of these groups, because that gets into a really hazy and uncomfortable, First Amendment grounds.
Yeah.
And that's the specter of Big Brother, right? But, what can you do the only thing it seems to me that you can do is just more education, right? Let's get people to think critically.
Yeah.
Let's get people to examine the notion of what these religions and what these cults really do.
Yeah.
And just make people aware. Just awareness and education, I think, really is all you can do. Unfortunately, it doesn't help like the little 11-year-old children who are trapped in families who belong to these cults, and so they have no choice. And so if it's just their fate to get wrapped up in duct tape, or are beaten to death if they're autistic, or be whipped like the kid here in town was because he was cutting up in Sunday school. So these two youth ministers,
he cheated on his Bible test.
Yeah.
And so the two youth pastors took him out.
Yeah.
I think they held him down and they beat him with tree branches.
Yeah. Yeah, until he experienced
kidney failure.
Total kidney failure. Yeah, so they could have killed him.
Yeah.
And so I'd very much like to know what how that case is progressing.
Yeah.
Because again, that's I say 10 years for each of those guys.
Yeah.
They should just put me in charge of these. I'll
sort it
I'll
all
crack
out.
down on this crap. Yeah. So anyway, very sad tale. Let's just hope it doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
But man, just so many cases, right? Of this kind of just organized religious abuse. If the Catholic pedophilia scandal weren't bad enough, right? But the Protestants have roll-off homes, and all of these just other nastiness to deal with. So just fundamentalism hurts people. Yeah. Yeah, sure. It's not enough to say that normal Christians would never do that. I know a lot of normal Christians who are like real big spanking advocates.
Yeah.
But okay, a swat on the behind if a kid's cutting up.
Very different.
I understand, but but we had this child rearing book.
Yes.
Literally child rearing, because there's this book that apparently is this big Christian bookstore type bestseller right now about child rearing. It's called Shepherding a Child's Heart.
Yes. Yeah.
And one of our producers, Russell Glasser, and his wife were given this book as like a baby shower gift by Russell's kid. He's about a year and a half old now, right?
Yeah.
They had a former neighbor where they used to live who was Christian.
Yeah.
And I think knew they were atheists, but she gave this book at the baby shower, much to like everyone, and like there was this uncomfortable silence. But then after this person left, we all immediately, like everyone poured through it.
On this book.
And then Jeff and everybody talked about it on the nonprofits, and then we got it and talked about it here. The book is basically just a list of justifications for beating your child.
Yeah.
And it becomes this, it's not just, hey, don't do that, little swat on the butt. The guy advocates this really weird ritualized spanking procedure, right?
Where you have to take the kid down, sit him down, tell him why you're going to beat the snot out of him.
Explain to him that this is what God wants to happen to him.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's like this little fear of God thing. Okay, and then, so you basically emotionally terrorize the child for several minutes, before like the physical pain starts.
Physically terrorize
him.
So.
And it's just like, what is up with that?
Yeah.
What is up with that? I don't get it. And
again, they have explicit things in the book saying some people don't agree with this.
Yeah.
Some people don't like beating your child.
Yeah.
And so in those instances, you should keep it quiet.
Yeah.
Don't let people know because they won't understand.
It's like beat the hell out of your kids and hide it from the public that you do this because like the law frowns on this. So, right? Just like, boy.
Yeah. Very freaky.
Suffer the little children. Okay, we kind of editorialized on that for a while, so let's race through these next two quickly because we got the phones are lit up, and thanks for holding. Everybody who's on the lines. We'll get right to you in a minute, and also if you don't manage to get through, if we don't talk to you before the end of the show, which can happen, we have our viewer email address, which is tv@atheist-community.org, where you can send us emails and ask us questions, and we answer all our emails we get. And some really good ones. If we get a really good one, we'll bring it on the air, read it on the air, and talk about it. And, of course, also the really good ones go up on the website, too. So tv@atheist-community.org. That's your viewer feedback address to feedback to us. Okay, last couple items.
Okay, two more relatively quick ones. The Nigerian woman who in March of 2002, I believe. Yeah, March 2002. She's living in Nigeria. They have the Sharia law, which basically Muslim Islamic law. Mm-hmm. They had a trial, and she was found guilty of adultery.
Okay.
And she had a child with that, and because that is a crime under Sharia law, she was sentenced to be stoned to death.
I mean, really grim, right? They were going to bury her up to her neck.
Yeah, bury her up to her neck in sand and then stone her to death.
I mean, who thinks of this stuff?
I know.
Who thinks of this stuff?
How much crueler can you possibly get?
Yeah.
So, but anyway, that was the punishment. Now they've had international pressure on them since the case, basically, to say, I mean, human rights, if nothing else.
Well, not too much, right? I mean, I haven't heard the Bush administration really come down on this that hard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now we have this horrible evil terrorist Saddam Hussein that we had to go in with missiles and massive military firepower to take him out because apparently he's this evil tyrant. But there wasn't there wasn't that much outrage over this sort of thing going on. And here's another case. And Nigeria, like Iraq, is a big oil exporting country. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, it seems to me like our government, if altruism were really the thing that gets the Bush administration to set the military machine in motion, it seems that there's a little inconsistency here on how they're applying it.
Yeah. Well, essentially, end result is this case has been thrown out.
Okay.
Mostly on technicality type things. The case was presided over by one judge rather than three, which he should have had. She did have a confession to all of this, but there was no lawyer present when she made it. And, there was one other thing which I can't remember offhand. She's basically, illiterate. She can't read all that well. Yeah. Not very educated. And so it's possible that she didn't really understand the charges that were against her in the first place.
Well, it just goes to show how deranged the system is there, that, that they had to find these technicalities, as the justification for having the sentence overthrown. Yeah. And it's not like, the sentence wasn't overthrown because burying somebody up to the neck in sand and
it's just horribly
smashing
cruel.
Their skull in with big stones is totally evil.
Yeah.
Okay, that wasn't the reason why they're not going to do this. No, we would do this if it weren't for these technicalities. So they've still got a messed up system there.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Also under Sharia, one man has been hanged for killing a woman and her 2 children, and Muslim authorities have amputated the hands of 3 people for stealing. So that country's still doing some wacky stuff under this Sharia law.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Last one and then phones.
Okay, quick one.
Folks.
Supreme Court decisions. Apparently, some Christians have found the way around them. In 30 cities across this nation, Christians will burn 6 intolerable Supreme Court decisions at federal court buildings.
Okay. And what do they think this will entitle them to do?
We're not sure.
Okay.
The Second American Revolution has begun. Like the first, the Church of Jesus Christ must lead. Operation Save America says the Supreme Court.
The Church of Jesus Christ didn't lead the first one. What are these people talking about?
Yes.
It's this revisionist history thing they like to do. I keep forgetting. Yeah.
Operation Save America says the Supreme Court has spurned its biblical mandate to judge justly. It has surrendered its constitutional responsibility. It has forfeited all moral authority. Therefore, they hold these decisions no longer relevant or binding upon us, our children, or our nation.
Well, good for you. If you violate them, you're still going to get prosecuted, whatever it is.
And the 6, and their little descriptions of them.
Okay.
Engel versus Vitale, silencing the prayers of our children in public schools. Abington versus Shemp, removal of the Bible from the education of our children. Roe v. Wade.
Wait a minute.
These are the different cases.
Okay. Well, okay, I could editorialize on how incredibly dumb and distorted each one of these were, but we could get a whole show on this.
They get worse. Roe v. Wade, over 45 million children killed in its horrible wake.
Okay, now notice the
children. For one.
Yeah, the weasel
makes it kind of look like a 5-year-old kid was brought up and killed.
Exactly.
So,
right.
Planned Parenthood versus Casey. I like this one. Declared that man can be God unto himself. They apparently, this was apparently a Supreme Court.
Well, somebody's got to, right?
And finally, Lawrence versus Texas declared homosexual sodomy to be a constitutional right. No,
they just declared that the government can't stick its nose in the bedrooms of consenting adults, right?
Yeah. So they're not going to idly sit by and tolerate the trashing of our rich biblical heritage.
Good. I hope they get on all these court buildings, right, in front of these court buildings, and they burn these documents.
And they're arrested for arson.
And they immediately get snapped up for, creating a big public fire hazard.
Yeah.
And
this is in 30 cities across the country. They will get there and burn. Or actually, that happened on the 25th.
Oh, and
a couple days ago.
And nobody noticed, and I saw nothing about it in the news, so nobody cared.
Saw nothing.
Right. So
they apparently didn't do squat.
Yeah. So. It wasn't like a big time lead in any of the newspapers of record around our
I wouldn't
country,
expect it to be.
Expect it to be. Hey, if they want this, incredible theocracy, they should go, hop a plane and find
find another little country, just like we did here.
Yeah,
go start at their own little country.
Yeah, hey, go and be that way over there. All right. Our callers have been holding very patiently. We appreciate it. We're going to start with Robert on 2. Hey, you're on the air. We need some volume.
The reason I called, I was in a chat room last night. Mm-hmm. Local chat room in Wahoo here in Austin. Uh-huh. And some of these people were talking about infecting people with HIV keeps them from being saved by the Lord, which I think is kind of stupid if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
That's strange.
I haven't heard of that one before.
Who was saying this? Just someone on this chat room?
Well, they was talking about it in the, it was called Anti-Christianity, one of the rooms on America Online.
Okay.
I wonder if it's one of the things where they're implying that the only way to get HIV is through, a gay relationship, and gays can't go to heaven, therefore...
Well, they was actually promoting to going out and infecting uninfected people.
Who was saying this?
Of course,
some idiot, obviously.
You can't ever believe anything in the chat room. Yeah. But there were several people. There was probably about 36 people in the room last night.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about internet chat rooms and discussion boards and news groups and what have you, is that it is a breeding ground for cranks and lunatics and morons.
Well, I just can't imagine someone wanting to go out there and purposely infect somebody with HIV.
Well, neither can I, and I can't imagine the people doing a lot of the deranged things that people do. And whatever their excuse is. It's just, but that's, welcome to the internet, it's just, it's the...
anyone with a keyboard can get off there and spout out whatever they want to.
But, it's a sad reality that the younger generation out there thinks they're invisible from HIV.
Yeah. There is a whole, in fact, what interesting thing I saw, I was going over, when I was writing my little refutations of those, Discovery Institute letters that I was talking about. And I was hitting a few websites. And on Talk Origins, there is a link. Apparently, HIV denial is another one of the big denials right now, right? Like there's...
How can you deny not having HIV?
Yeah, well, there are people who deny that HIV is the virus that causes AIDS. Just like it's just one of these. It's like evolution denial. It's like Holocaust denial. It's groups of people who have some kind of agenda to push. And so they want to. They just want to decide that a certain thing doesn't exist that inconveniences their agenda.
So it's a big science conspiracy or something.
Well, yeah.
There's this nasty disease out there.
Well, they just think that whatever their reasons, they just want to. I know that there are in the gay community, and I think most people in the gay community, because I saw something about this on like an episode of Dateline one time. Apparently, there's like this new generation of young gay men, right, who've decided that HIV doesn't cause AIDS. They've just decided that, right? And
apparently not based on any actual evidence.
Some of these guys are positive, right?
Okay.
And so this apparently appears to be just a form of denial they're going through. I'm not going to get it, right?
Yeah.
It's because
not everyone does.
Well, and then they would interview these, older gay men who were like in the 1980s who were 25, and now they're 45 and 50, and who were saying these guys are freaking idiots.
They are.
I mean,
idiots.
I've seen. I know exactly, because I've seen all my friends die and da-da-da-da. So, but it's not just in the gay community that the HIV denial is happening. I saw a list on one of the, on the Talk Origins website that they linked to, which is, of course, the big evolution site, but Philip Johnson and Jonathan Wells, who are two of the big intelligent design proponents, have also signed their names to an HIV denial document.
Wow.
There's and I was actually amazed by the number of MDs who are on this document saying we dispute the notion that HIV is the virus that causes AIDS, and two of the names on that were Philip Johnson and Jonathan Wells, who are also two of the big evolution deniers. So it's not just the younger generation who think that they're just immune from AIDS, or who are trying to fly in the face of all research right now to talk about what's going on. And I'm sure that guys like Johnson and Wells, they've obviously got a different political agenda that's motivating their denial.
Yeah.
But it's crazy. Robert. I agree with you. Whatever the reason is, it's crazy.
Back about 3 months ago, Travis County, the state of Texas had a national HIV testing day. You remember that?
Yeah.
Well, according to the latest reports that was just published last week, in the Travis County area alone, there was 28,416 people took the test, and 10,219 tested positive.
Wow.
And the age group that the highest number of positive new cases were in the age group of 14 to 19.
Wow.
So you have all these young people out there that have multiple sex partners who refuse to wear condoms, and they just pass along drug-resistant strains of the viruses to other people, and just brutalize them. They just don't realize how serious.
Very little to no sex education.
Right. That's right. So. Yeah. And the whole thing with the abstinence-only sex education, well, sure, it's obvious that if you don't have sex, that's like a really good way not to get HIV.
Yeah. If effectively used, it works.
Yeah, but to just focus on that to the exclusion of all else, not give all the information, is, of course, bad education.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's been shown that abstinence-only education has no better effect at preventing kids who want to go out and have sex from having sex.
Yeah. That's just like telling kids, don't drink alcohol or do drugs, it's bad for you.
Yeah. If you present it as something that just mom and dad don't want you to do, that to the rebellious mind of a teenager, that just makes it more attractive.
Yeah.
So
a lot of the younger generation, they lose their virginity at 13. They have babies by 14 and 15.
Yeah. Teen pregnancy is actually it's down from what it has been in past decades.
Yeah, it's getting better, but
it's getting better, but it is still a problem. But the only way you're going to take care of the problem again is through really solid education.
Yeah.
First, let's make sex a thing that we aren't like. Don't talk about that. Shh. Let's get over that puritanical attitude about, this is not an appropriate thing to talk to little Johnny or little Jane, because they're only 12. Stupid.
All those altar boys that got blowjobs.
The old toothpaste is out of the tube there.
That's really bad.
I'm so sorry.
You can't, all of a sudden here you come up 20 years later, and now they want to sue the Catholic churches because they got blowjobs. Now, give me a break.
Well, now that was abuse. That was priests abusing their authority and abusing these kids. Yeah. And that was
their powers.
Yeah, that was pure and simple child abuse there. Yeah. But still, so we need more education and better education. So, all right, anything else, Robert?
No, sir. Y'all got a good show.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks, man. Thanks a lot for your call. You take care. Okay, who's next? Would it be Mark or Stan? Stan? Okay, another one. Hey, thanks for holding.
Hi.
How you doing?
Hey. Am I coming through okay?
You're coming through just fine.
Hi. This is a question for both of y'all. I enjoy your show. And I really appreciate that you guys talk about the Bible more than most Christian shows seem to talk about it.
Oh.
And examine things a little thoroughly. And the Bible talks about Jesus. He says that there's hot and cold people, and he uses the analogy of water. Some are hot and some are cold. And the ones in between that are lukewarm, he spits out. And
do you remember that particular chapter and verse? That's
it's in Revelations, but I don't know exactly. But I'm hot for Jesus, and you guys seem cold, so you still may have a chance. It's the ones that are in the middle, the churches of this world, that you have to worry about. And I can agree about that with you more. But my question to you guys is, has anything changed in the world of evolutionary thought? That have they found anything new that you can actually prove that evolution is how we came to existence? Or
that particular
going on the preponderance of evidence and your faith and belief in what you feel is the evidence.
Well, the question of does evolution happen is not in question, right? I mean, we know that happens. We've got the genetic evidence, we've got the fossil record, we've got all sorts of archaeological and paleontological evidence, taxonomy, phylogeny, you name it. But the various methods, how and exactly what the process is, that's still very much an issue of ongoing study. We've just, in the last couple of years, we've found things like the UBX Hox gene, which explains how you get massive morphological changes. You can actually, it's a thing that really shores up the notion of macroevolution, where you can just you can tweak one chromosome basically and have just one thing in the genetic code, and suddenly an extra pair of legs on an insect becomes a wing, becomes a set of wings, and of course we're finding more like the news article that Ashley just read. You've got. We've got a new fossil that we've found some more information about. The thing about it's evolution is such a fast-paced field of scientific study right now, especially because we're learning so much more and more every day. It's like, and any article published on evolution 6 months ago is already going to be out of date because they're going to have so much more information, so many more details that they can, just fit into the puzzle. So
basically, you can no longer prove that we came into existence through evolutionary means, no God. Let's say, then I can prove to you that we came into existence by there being a God. Right?
Well, I just told you that we have massive amounts of scientific evidence. Okay,
proof positive.
Well, it's in the genes.
As far as science can prove something, evolution is pretty much there.
How can you prove that God didn't create what you're seeing in the evolutionary process?
Well, we can't, but saying that is kind of like saying, it's just denial, basically, to say that, we have mountains and mountains of evidence, we have genetic code.
There really is no proof either way.
Well, God could have made evolution. Evolution could have been set into motion by a God, right?
Yeah, God could have put dinosaur bones in the ground.
Yeah, it could have been set into motion by those big black slabs in the movie 2001.
Right, but we don't know.
Yeah, well, the thing is, and see, because God is, for all intents and purposes, at least, if what we learn from, if what we hear from believers in the various world religions is anything to go by, God is more or less a supernatural concept. And science doesn't deal with those questions. Science is an empirical process. It deals with studying the natural world through observation. It doesn't really deal with metaphysics. It doesn't deal with things like gods. It doesn't deal with things like magic pixies in the sky or, big black alien slabs. It deals pretty much with what can we really just dig our, fingernails into and look at and study and it's an empirical process. It's not about metaphysical speculation. So
and so either way, you're basically going on your faith in what evidence you believe.
Well, evidence. Well, if you have evidence, you don't need faith. Okay, we know that evolution happens as a process. Now, whether that was set in motion by a god or whether it was set in motion through natural processes, science tells us that natural processes look like the culprit. But if there's a god behind it, that's a question for the philosophers, and if believers think that there is a God behind it, and they think that they can provide that sort of tangible evidence, which is what the intelligent design movement, for example, is arguing, then they need to present that evidence and have it examined. The problem is they're not really doing that.
Well, how do you prove there is a God? He might have wanted it this way, and so...
William Dembski seems to think you can do it through mathematics.
Well, and there are some people, some very high-thinking people that are leaning that way. But the argument still is that neither one can prove... you guys can't prove
the problem here...
a God.
Yeah.
Let him ask you.
The problem here is what's called Occam's razor. Whenever you have two different explanations, the simpler one is usually going to be...
2 or 3 or 4 or 5.
Or however many. The simplest one is usually going to be the best explanation. So we have two different choices. One, an invisible, all-powerful, infinitely knowing, loving, universe-creating, invisible man in the sky, created it all, put dinosaur bones in the earth, gave everything genetics that are kind of related to make us think that we could actually be related, put, a fossil history in the ground just to make you think that you might be related to monkeys and stuff like that. Well, he could have done all this stuff.
Would it serve his purpose if he...
Or the other alternative here...
Hang on, let him finish.
Let me finish, though.
Okay.
Or the other alternative is that there actually were creatures, thousands of years ago that we evolved from. That there actually were dinosaurs and their bones turned into stone over, thousands and millions of years. That's a better explanation because we have evidence. We can see how that works. We have theories that say, here's how over enough time these things can happen.
That whole thing had to begin somewhere, and so it's a matter of where it began that we get to. Okay, either one of us can prove.
And so
where
are you
it
basically?
Began.
So are you basically?
No, let him get to his point.
So basically, there's really no difference. If
there's a big difference.
Either one can prove it, So
here's why.
Really, you're just being kind of like another religion.
Let me explain it to you. Here's why science ignores God. Okay. Remember, science deals with let's observe phenomena, let's establish theories based upon our observations, and how do we know those theories to be true? First off, you have something called falsifiability, okay, which means that one way to test whether or not a theory is valid is you have to be able to say, okay, if it didn't happen this way, okay, or if it happened this way, we would expect to see these certain kinds of conditions existing in the world. Okay, but if we don't see those conditions, then that theory is false. In other words, if you have a theory to present, then you just have to be able to imagine a way in which it is falsifiable, in which it is, if different conditions existed than the ones we see right now, would the theory be true or would it be false? That's how you do it. So the problem with a God or any sort of creative entity like that, some sort of all-powerful universal intelligence, is that it is not really a falsifiable concept. You cannot really come up with some sort of experiment to potentially, say this would not happen. Things would not happen this way if a God were behind it, because frankly, any set of conditions that you could possibly imagine could be the result of a creating God. Okay. Now, on the other hand, with evolution is falsifiable because you can imagine situations that, okay, if we were to find this evidence in the ground, if we were to find evidence that fit a certain form, then we could say, all right, evolution didn't happen. One of those ways would be, let's say we found an example in the fossil record of some species that had no predecessors, right? Just all at once we suddenly discovered this species. And it just emerges in a fully developed form, and we've got nothing that we can trace it to going back any further. If we could find examples of that in the fossil record, then that would probably prove that there were animals just coming out of existence parthenogenetically.
But that still wouldn't prove where we came from, whether it was a creator or an intelligent being that started.
Well, right, because the notion of a creator or an intelligent designer or a God isn't really falsifiable. That's the problem. You cannot really look at a situation and say
there's a problem in measuring the God side of it, the spiritual side. You can't measure a spirit world, and if there's no
that's
way
why
to measure
science ignores it.
It doesn't exist.
That's why science doesn't entertain the notion. The notion of a spirit world is not a thing that can be observed. But there's no empirical evidence that you can observe that from that kind of a spiritual or a supernatural plane, as it were.
But it still doesn't. It comes back to the same thing. We're both going on faith by what we believe.
Well, no, we're not. We're not doing that. No, the fossil record exists.
You can't prove to me by a fossil record or that there is no God.
Okay, but
the fossil record isn't getting to the question of God. The fossil record is simply showing that things evolved. Okay, the fossil record isn't even trying to get to a God.
But that doesn't mean that God didn't create that to begin with.
Right, but you're doing the process backwards, right? You have a conclusion.
You end up in the beginning, and you have to start. Where did it all come from?
Yeah, but what you're doing is you're arguing from your conclusion, right?
And other people believe that God created it.
Yeah, but that's the problem is in science you don't start with the belief and then just look for the evidence that supports the belief. Okay, that isn't how you do proper science. In science, you just look at what you got, and then you draw your conclusion. You start from nothing.
You can be wrong.
You start from a blank slate.
People believe that the world was flat for so long, and they didn't have the tools to recognize.
Actually, most people, it's actually a fallacy. Most people in history did not believe the world was flat. I mean, Aristotle knew that the world was round.
But there has been plenty of mass disbeliefs in things over the time until then people have learned better.
I think that what you need is basically just a primer on like the scientific method, and you'll understand the difference between how science goes about examining questions and then how religion and metaphysics goes about examining questions. I mean, the methods are just different.
And also the question of where did we all come from and such. Again, depending on how far back you want to go, it's something that we just don't know. We're looking into.
Right. So we don't know. That's my point. But
let me finish. It used to be, again, that years ago people said, lightning, we don't know where that comes from. Must be God. Now you can say, okay, we don't know where we came from. It had to start somewhere. It must be God.
Right.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
There can be other things out there that we just haven't found yet. We don't know, and so we're looking into it rather than saying, I don't know, God.
Yeah.
And there could be a time in that kind of logic where there could be some kind of a piece of equipment that could say there is a God. Here he is.
And if that happens, then
believe,
great.
Right?
Well, I mean, at that point, that would be something called evidence, and then that would be a lot stronger than what people, like yourself, are sort of promoting right now, which is a concept called God of the gaps.
Well,
when you don't know the answer to
a question, prove that there is a God to you, then you can prove that there is none.
Well, we're not trying to prove that there is none. Remember, science is.
Believe that.
Science is. We believe that, but again, but it is not our job to prove to you that God doesn't exist.
Well,
okay?
True.
The burden of proof for any claim rests upon the person claiming the existence of the thing in question. As atheists, we are people here saying we don't believe in the God claims that religious people give us, okay? Because we don't think the evidence that they present is adequate. Often they don't present evidence at all. They just give us like emotional arguments or this, that, or the other.
And that's from the evidence that you've seen and you have faith in. And so,
we don't have evidence or faith in anything.
No, wait a minute.
Atheism is not belief in something.
Well, you have faith that in what you believe is true, right?
Well, atheism is about the disbelief in God. Okay, that's all atheism is about. We're just two guys who don't believe in any gods.
And so basically, to me, it seems like you just created a whole new religion, the thing that you're almost all against. But just
do you know what the word religion means?
Here's people that support a notion, and you kind of put in your efforts and your time and energy.
Stan, wait. Do you know what a religion is? I mean, do you know what a religion is? I mean, the dictionary definition of religion.
Well, it probably has something to do with some God, but still, there's not much difference.
It has to do with worship,
though. It's just taking out the God, but you still.
No,
a religion without a God. I mean,
no, you don't have a religion without worship. You don't have a religion without things like a God or worship or anything. Okay, atheism is a philosophical point of view. Okay, that's what atheism is.
But it's a group. It's an organization, right?
Well, so is a bowling league.
Yeah. So I mean,
but it falls right in there with the rest of them in that.
No.
Yeah. Okay. I think
you need to read our fact page.
Possibly here. Let me find out if this is maybe where you're coming.
Well, we got to go on to
the
the next guy, but
one quick thing here though.
Okay. I've got one more thing too.
Well,
possibly this is where you're coming from. I don't know for a fact. Is it your impression that atheism is the disbelief in God? We believe that there is no God.
That's not disbelief in God.
Is that where you're coming from? Are you under the impression that we're saying there's no God? Period.
I'm coming from the place that you know better than any of the other religions if you are out there promoting an idea that you can't prove. And then,
but we don't. But we are not attempting to prove an idea.
Yeah.
Well,
we're not trying to prove an idea about atheism.
We're saying that the religious people have not sufficiently proved their point of view. They're saying that there's this invisible man in the sky that created the universe. They haven't proved that. They're just saying it and claiming it. They haven't
we don't believe
given anything.
So you're saying
that's
wrong
that's
in promoting something that they can't prove, but yet in reality, I don't think that you guys can prove it. And my last.
But it's not our job.
It's not our job to prove it.
It's not our job to prove it.
So neither one can. We can.
Right. But we don't have a position that we need to prove. I mean, do you believe in any of the ancient Roman gods?
I believe that there's some evidence.
Do you believe in any
of those things, whether they were true or not?
No, I'm asking you. Do you believe they were true? Do you believe the ancient Roman gods were true?
No, but I'm sure that people did at the time.
But do you, okay? Now, in order to justify, do you feel that you have to prove the ancient Roman gods don't exist in order to justify not believing in them?
I'm sorry, you lost me there.
Okay, if you don't believe in the ancient Roman gods, do you feel that in order to justify, that you have to prove they don't exist?
No, and neither do you have to prove
exactly.
To me that there is
that's
no
what
God.
We've been
you
saying.
You don't have to prove that to me.
All right, but that's where we are. We got to go on to the next guy.
Wait, one more.
I'm sorry. Right? I mean, we got to move on. We got a lot of people backed up. Send us an email, okay? TV@atheist-community.org if you have any more questions. And we're here every week, so call us next week too. But we are backed up. Who's next? Mark has been waiting really patiently. Thank you.
Hello?
Hey, you're on the air finally.
Hi, okay.
Sorry to keep you waiting, but...
No, that's okay. I have some comments on what Ashley was speaking about earlier.
Okay.
But then the last two callers put so many thoughts in my head.
You just go right ahead.
Well, before I get into my comment, I think what the last caller was trying to ask you was why you were putting forth your effort into doing this show and promoting... You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, probably. He was probably going there.
But going back to what a couple of callers, he was talking about the HIV denial by the gay community.
Not everyone, right? There's this little group of people. Apparently, there's some people It seems to me.
Oh, okay, the younger crowd, right?
Yeah, there was an episode of either Dateline or 60 Minutes or something where they had a report on there's this group of gay men out in like San Francisco or in California somewhere, and they've just and many of them are HIV positive.
Okay.
And their attitude is, I'm not dangerous. HIV doesn't cause AIDS. I'm fine. Okay, I have this virus, but it's no big deal.
Well,
and it's a denial attitude that they're in, and of course there are other members of the gay community are just like, these guys are nuts.
I mean, my take on it, I mean, you can't deny the fact that fag bastards unite, fag bastards unite.
I knew it was you. I knew it was you. Yeah, that's his whole thing. I knew it was him.
God. Dude, you got to get out more.
Yeah. No, see, the thing is someone infected him. That's the deal, and he's and so he's got this. This guy, by the way, just for the viewers at home, we've been told this guy calls like every cable access show.
Like, the guy's got no life.
Dozens of them, and does that. That's his one line. But I love the fact that we made him hold for so long just to do that one little thing. Hey, Cecelia, you're on the air.
Hi there, guys.
How you doing?
That guy is so weird. Oh my God.
Isn't he? Yeah. How many shows have you heard him on? Like,
I think at least 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably more than that.
Man. Lonely guy.
Well, the reason I'm calling today is because I was listening to what you guys were saying about the child abuse in, a lot of fundamentalist Christian communities, and I remember I was raised Southern Baptist, unfortunately, and,
me too.
So I don't remember exactly all the details of this, try to get it out of my mind, so I can live a healthy life, basically. Basically, one of the big lessons in Sunday school they used to teach us was from, you guys are probably familiar with this, but about the man who God told him to basically put a dagger into his son, to sacrifice his son, and this guy was put up as this pinnacle of Christian, or I guess I don't know what since it's Old Testament, it's probably not Christian, but he was supposed to be the pinnacle of a faithful person, that he's willing to sacrifice or kill his own son for this God.
Oh, Abraham and Isaac.
Twisted. Right? And this guy, was, the people in our church just, what a good Christian, what a good man this is, that he would be willing to kill his own son. I mean, that is the mentality that...
that's sick!
Yeah, that's really scary.
Are you people crazy?
Yeah.
Are you just nuts?
Yeah.
There's a movie out there called Frailty, which came out, I think, about a year ago or so, maybe a little bit more than that. And that was basically on the same kind... It made reference to the same thing, saying, well, God did the same thing to my father, and he killed my brother, and God didn't look on my father with the same favor that he did Abraham. And so that's why he actually killed him. And it was just this wacky stuff.
There's another movie that I'm thinking of. This is actually an old movie from the 80s. It's called The Rapture. Okay. Seen this? It is really crazy. Everyone should rent this movie if you get a chance. It is really something else. First off, this movie will offend everyone. Okay, it doesn't matter if you are a Christian, if you are an atheist.
That's a good movie.
Yeah. So it's kind of cool in that regard, but essentially it's about this woman, right, who is like just this total like living the sexual revolution and partying and getting, and has this religious epiphany and becomes like this hardcore super fundamentalist.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's the best kind.
And ultimately, like the issue of like to prove this, the whole child sacrifice issue comes up. And it is really like, pretty amazing. Just the ballsiness of the way the whole movie tackles this subject. But it's just crazy to me that, the people will look upon just these twisted behaviors as being some sort of, but what a wonderful man of faith he must be if he's willing to. No, he's not.
Shows he was nuts.
God told me to do something like that, I would go and get psychiatric help.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would tell God to get psychiatric help or something. It's just, I don't know. It just... funny ideas. When you start to take these kinds of beliefs seriously, people really adopt very funny ideas about things.
Yeah.
So it's called The Rapture?
The movie is called The Rapture. And, it's the most offensive movie you will ever see, but it's cool. It really is. So,
well, thank you, guys.
Hey, thank you, Cecelia. Okay. Appreciate it. Take care.
Thanks for calling.
All right. It was cool. Who's next? Ronnie. Hey, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hello?
Fag bastards unite! Fag bastards!
Good Lord. Usually he gets more and more desperate, like every week gets done. All right.
Couldn't even pretend that he had a topic.
Hi, you're on the air.
Hey, guys. How y'all doing?
Fine, I suppose.
Yeah. As far as what you were saying, I mean, the extreme stuff of sacrificing a child in the name of God, or even chopping off the end of your male penis, to be honest, circumcision, that's crazy, and people do it all over this country.
Yeah.
And they God wants this baby ring or something. I mean,
I understand that there's...
And that's something we do today. That's not, that's not ancient sacrificial things that we laugh at nowadays and go, oh, how barbaric that was.
Yeah.
But we do this barbaric thing to children when they first arrive.
Yeah. I understand there are some sound medical benefits to being circumcised versus not being circumcised, but it's nothing that good hygiene can't.
Exactly.
You can't do with good hygiene.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think the Chinese are the most populous people on the earth, and I don't think they circumcise, so it can't be that dangerous to your health.
Probably not. No. There's enough else going on over there that's dangerous to your health that they don't have to worry about that.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, I think circumcision goes all the way back to Egypt. They've actually got carvings and stuff of their pharaohs and people that had that done.
Wow.
Yeah, so, I mean, whenever the Jews took it out of there, they were just adopting their tradition and bringing it to themselves and claiming it as their own.
Yeah.
But what I really called in was, I heard y'all talking about evolution and stuff a little bit earlier, and y'all got the evolved thing on your...
Oh, yeah. Our little mascots. Yeah.
I would assert that evolution itself is a theory that is either believed or disbelieved, that it's not a fact, in the sense that you can do repeated experiments and get the result of evolution occurring in practice, and and we really don't see it occurring in nature.
Actually, we do. Yeah, we do.
I don't think so.
Have you?
I mean, can you cite me an animal that has...
Yeah, ironically enough, we've just been talking about HIV. I mean, the HIV is an example of evolution in action, right? I mean, any sort of disease-causing germ, right, that becomes drug-resistant because it is evolving. Now, microbes are tremendously small, so they evolve at a much faster rate. But what you have, is a situation, let's say somebody is infected with some disease, right? So they take this big medication for the disease, and the medication kills about... let's say 95% of the bacteria or virus in the body. Well, that remaining 5%, that managed to survive because of whatever little mutation it had in its DNA to not be killed by the medicine, well, that 5% is the 5% that gets to reproduce and make the next generation.
Yeah,
so now what you have is, that's natural selection. You now have a new generation. The next generation of this virus in the person's body is now drug resistant completely to the drug that killed the previous 95% of the previous generation. And so now you have to develop more drugs, and the same thing happens, and it's over. This is why HIV has been so hard to fight. It has this remarkable adaptability. The selection pressure on it to survive is incredible. And you see a similar thing with all sorts of germs and disease bacteria. We've seen examples, but also in higher life forms, of speciation occurring. We do see examples of it going on in nature.
Well, I think you're confusing, no offense, but I think you're confusing evolution, which is the outcropping of one species from another species from...
No, that's not what evolution...
survival of the fittest.
That's not what evolution is.
Or what you're saying, which is even...
Well, David, your definition of evolution is incorrect.
Let me ask you, do you have an AIDS germ or a virus after it has mutated? Yeah, you still have a same AIDS virus. You just have one now that will not be killed by a particular medicine but that's the same with human beings.
It evolved, right?
Human beings. You could attack human beings with a virus that will pretty much kill almost every human on the planet, but just by the sheer luck of nature, there's going to be some humans that are resistant.
That is called natural selection.
It's not evolution because they're still human beings.
That's natural selection.
You haven't created a new species.
David, hang on.
You're making the distinction between micro and macroevolution.
Well, I'm also making the distinction between species. Well, you're saying, evolution says one species grew out of another species out of another.
That's not all it says. Okay, but David, stop. David, stop. Your definition of evolution is inaccurate. Okay, evolution has to do with, and this is the basic definition that you will hear an actual biologist use. Okay, it's the change in gene frequencies in a population over time. That's what evolution involves. It's not just birds becoming, or it's not just it's lizards becoming, birds becoming other things.
I think
that's
it is.
not what it is.
It's all about origin.
That's one part of it. That's one part of a very big puzzle.
Evolution is about the origin of mankind and where do we come from, and they're saying we came from simpler life forms that eventually evolved to more complex life forms, and I'm saying that an AIDS virus that is resistant to a certain germ is not necessarily a higher life form than the AIDS virus that died.
Where did you get your what is your do you have a degree in biology or a PhD or an MS or anything like that?
No.
Okay, well then what I suggest you do, right, is read the literature from actual scientists.
Well, I don't have to. I mean, I understand.
What do you mean you don't? Wait a minute, you don't have to. You can sit there and pretend to be an expert on a subject about which you know nothing, and make inaccurate statements, and then say, oh, I don't have to consult the experts. That's what you're saying. That's just not smart, man.
Well, what is the question people were after whenever they came up with evolution? They were after the question of where did mankind come from?
Well,
Am I right?
Well, what Darwin was doing was trying to figure out how different populations of various animal species spread about, and how the populations were distributed, and why they were distributed the way they were distributed. Okay.
That's a little touch of it, but really what mankind was after at that point.
Don't tell me what a little touch is or isn't.
No, they were after where mankind came from. That
wasn't just what they were after.
Evolution.
Look, you have already said.
People are trying to figure out where we came from.
Look, you've already admitted you don't have any sort of degree in biology. You don't have any sort of education in the field, and you've just said that you don't care to read what the experts say. So how can you sit there and declaim like you have this expertise?
Well, I'm just saying that an AIDS virus hasn't turned into a pneumonia virus.
But that's not what evolution is. I mean, you are making an argument for ignorance. You don't know what you're talking about.
No,
okay?
I do.
Your assessment of evolution is wrong.
Okay, evolution doesn't claim to prove the origin of man.
Evolution isn't about origin. Well, first, evolution does talk about all life forms coming from a common descent.
Simpler life form.
A common descent. And you can only...
not just common, but
it's common descent.
From a simpler life form.
Right. And, well, when you have simplicity, you can only really go towards complexity. So that's kind of a no-brainer.
Well, have you ever seen anything evolve into a higher order of life form? That's what I'm asking you for, a species example of evolution, not a micro within one species. You're saying... Well, I mean, that's just like if we got subjected to a lot of sunlight. All of a sudden, the pale people would start dying off more.
Yeah. We have seen speciation occur. Yes. We have seen certain animals.
Cite that example. What species?
I thought you didn't care to hear the examples. Yeah. I thought you didn't want to.
There was one. I believe it was actually in London. They had this. It was general mosquito population. And when they were building the tunnel system, mosquitoes got down in the tunnel system, and essentially it kind of separated these two sections off. Eventually they did, they changed over time, and now, I mean, they're still mosquitoes, obviously, but they can't interbreed. It's a new species of mosquito that was not there previously.
And cannot interbreed, which means it's destined to die out.
No. The one population can breed amongst itself.
Yeah.
But that population can no longer interbreed with the population that is separated.
You can't bring the ones from the tube system, bring them back up, and have them breed with other ones up there.
See, that's what speciation. Look, David, there's nothing wrong, right? There's nothing wrong with asking questions in science, right? That's what it's all about. I mean, science is a process of constantly asking questions. But I gotta say, man, if you're not willing to read the literature, okay, look, all the questions that you're asking, these are not unanswered questions. We got two websites right here that we've got links to right there.
The theories have been around for a long time, and people have been studying it, and he can only give me one possible example, which doesn't even really sound like a species.
We're not biologists.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, if evolution was occurring, and all these species grew from a common origin,
right,
which is what they claim with evolution,
right,
then I'm just saying we would see it ongoing. At some point, in some species, we would see coming on. We have never seen a new species appear on the Earth.
That's false.
It just doesn't happen.
David, that is false.
We just saw one.
David, the only ones we've seen are like the AIDS virus.
Davis, that is false.
Yeah, that's false.
Okay, when you say that we have never seen new species evolve, that is false.
I just told you one.
But and we're not even biologists, right? Look, the literature right there, these two websites below, talkorigins.org and talkdesign.org, especially talkorigins.org. If you really want answers to these questions, if you are really sincere about wanting answers to these questions, go to the scientific literature. Okay? But if you're going to make all these declamations about what you think evolution says, and then when I suggest go to the scientific literature and you say, oh, well, I don't have to do that, I have to wonder about if you sincerely want answers to these questions. So
if you like to have answers to them, and I really
good. Then if you want answers to the questions, read the literature. It is right there. Talkorigins.org. It's the website. If you have questions about evolution, that's where to go. It's a very handy online resource, and it's real scientific papers.
We can give generalities, but we can't get all that specific.
We're not biologists either, but all we're telling you is what the experts are saying.
And are they saying evolution is a fact or a theory?
It's both, actually.
Yeah,
it's a fact on the micro level and a theory on the macro level.
Technically, it's the theory of evolution through natural selection. Evolution is, again, they don't call it a fact. It's not something that, you could bring in a lab and test type thing. But evolution happened, period.
Well,
now, what they do, let me finish. Let me finish. Okay. What is in question, and the theory part, is the natural selection. Was it, pressures by environment that caused them to change? Was it just random, punctuated?
The fact of it,
they have lots of different ways that it could have changed. We don't know which one is the correct one. Evolution happened.
The fact of evolution is that organisms evolve. The theory of evolution has to do with now what is the process by which the theory evolves. Yeah. Again, read the literature. It's right there. If you're sincere about getting answers,
did evolve from a low life form.
Read the literature.
Natural selection.
We got to move on, but the literature is right there. Talkorigins.org. I mean, look for yourself. It's right there. It's just, see, this is fine. This is what amazes me, right? I mean, they could get the answers to, Christians could get the answers to the questions that they want. Okay. Yeah. But I have to wonder about how sincere they are about wanting the answers to those questions. If you say, well, here's the literature, read it. Oh, I don't have to read that. It's like, dude, then, yes.
Yeah, we can give some general answers and stuff like that, but when it starts getting very specific, then obviously we're going to cut out because, again, we're not scientists. We're not biologists. We can't tell, 2 years ago there was a study done on blah, 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 because, we don't know.
And speaking of, there is also a part of the talkorigins.org website, and I've actually printed some of this out, but there is the page that gives 29 evidences for macroevolution. Okay, so we have just as strong evidence for macroevolution as we have for microevolution. But again, David is critiquing, like so many creationists that we hear, right? He is critiquing evolution, and then when you hear what he thinks evolution is about, everything he has to say, evolution is about this. Well, it's just wrong. Yeah. Okay, and then he just states a falsehood, right? It's like, so if you're working from a faulty premise, it's going to be very hard to make an informed decision about things. So make informed decisions. Is Alex next? On 2. Hi, you're on the air.
Hey, what's up?
We're good. What's going on?
Hey, yeah, I was just commenting on that story about that dad who try to sacrifice his son for the Lord.
Yeah.
And wasn't there like a struggle in it or something where he had to climb a mountain and he was struggling between whether he wanted to do it or not and why God wanted him to do that?
I don't know the specifics, but I think there was a lot of internal struggle as to whether or not he wanted, he was going to do this. I mean, this is his son, obviously.
Right, but he never did it.
Well, he raised the knife up to stab him, and then God said, hang on a second, it's okay.
Yeah, just kidding.
So, yeah, no. Funny joke.
It wasn't like, you're just kidding, but he was just like, he was just testing his faith.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's like...
But that's a sick way to do it.
Yeah, that's nuts. I mean, the only reason Abraham didn't kill Isaac was because God stopped him. I mean, he had made up his mind to do it.
Yeah.
And I mean, like...
Why is that a praiseworthy thing? Why is it?
I didn't say it was praiseworthy. Yeah. I'm not saying it's praiseworthy. I'm just saying, like, for me, if I believe if God really made him do that or asked him to do that, well, it's God's son too, and he created that life, so he has the right to take it away or ask somebody to take it away.
I think that's
absolutely that is disgusting.
I think that's nuts. Why? The fact that you create life gives you the right to take it away. I've never understood.
He has the right to do it.
Well, no. How does he have the right to do it? How does he have the right to do it? I've never understood that point of view. Why do Christians take this idea?
Why just Christians?
Well, let's just say whoever. But I've heard Christians make this argument. I've heard Christians make this argument that God created people, so he has the right to kill them. That's like one defense of the problem of evil. Well, if God gave you life, he has the right to take it away.
He doesn't. He doesn't.
Okay.
Has there ever been a case where he does? No.
Well, it's not. Well, we don't think there's ever been a case that he does because he doesn't exist. But we're saying that.
Right. Okay.
But a lot of Christians will defend this whole notion of, like, for example, Abraham asking, or just all the people that God kills in the Old Testament, which is like in the millions. Okay, it's like how if this is a loving God, why would He do this? Well, I've quite frequently heard Christians argue, well, God created life, He gave you the life, so He's got, if He wants to kill you, He can, and I just think that's bizarre. It's like, it's not enough that one would choose to believe in a God like that, but to actually love and worship such a God is to me just weird.
Well, a lot of the Bible is based on people lying to try to change other people to start believing in their beliefs by scaring them, like making them believe in the devil and like that they're going to die and God's evil. But if you really, really read between the lines, a lot of it doesn't really have to do with God being evil and angry and always wanting to kill people. He's a peaceful man, and I mean, sometimes I just think the Bible's corrupted and that a lot of it is just
Again,
lying.
They have that duality there where, you could say, yeah, God loves you. He wants you to come up to Him. He wants you to love Him, and it's all one big happy family. But if you don't love Him, He's going to burn you for all eternity.
Yeah.
That's is that really love?
Yeah.
I mean, if you go to your son and say, son, I love you. I really respect you. I want you to do good and everything like that. But if you don't, I'm going to beat you senseless.
I'm going to shoot you in the head.
Yeah, I mean, is that really fatherly, parental love there?
But
it's just funny. It's just.
I mean, like if you were like Indians and a mission came over and they started telling you this and this, that God was going to do this just because they want you to believe in their beliefs, and that's what it's all really about.
Oh well, sure, yeah. I mean, we understand that religion is a big organization, wants to create, increase its power, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, so, that's not a mystery.
Right, and I'm just saying that it kind of makes it sound bad, and it makes it.
Yeah,
because it is bad.
Right. But like you have to be smart and think about it and be like, well, I don't believe in that, and I really don't think, but I still believe in God, and I still believe God created us.
Well, I don't really understand why that someone would partition it that way. Yeah, I mean, well, here's the thing though. People do tend to sort of create God in their own image, right? So if somebody finds the idea of a God who goes around massacring people by the millions because they're enemies of the faith or what have you, then like the Old Testament God, right? Yeah. Well, then they're just going to decide, oh well, God's not like that. My God isn't like that. I find that notion distasteful. Killing and slaughtering and drowning babies and all the rest of it. So God's not like that for me. If that's the kind of person they are.
But are they just making it up?
On the other hand, if you're somebody like Fred Phelps, okay, then God is all about hating and killing, and that's great. Yeah. So you're right. I mean, I can see how people would reject the notion of if there's something in the Bible that they find distasteful, that that God is responsible for, and they don't like it, they just decide that they ignore that bit, and and that still allows them to believe in God, because the Bible is nothing if not the big book of multiple choice. Yeah. Right? You either have your Old Testament God, or you have the God of the New Covenant, or you have you can just pick the loving bits that you really like, choose not to pay attention to the creepy bits that you don't like, and go on about your business. But we try to point out those inconsistencies, and sometimes people get upset with us.
Right, but why should I believe it if I shouldn't trust man? Like, people lie. People lie all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I mean, why don't you guys believe in God, or do you believe in God?
Well, no. See, we're
all right, but what's y'all's reason for not believing in Him?
We don't think that believers have presented us with compelling evidence. No
one's brought him down to the studio. There's no evidence for any form of God. Everybody's saying that there is one, but everybody says there's Santa too. There's no evidence.
Well, it's not quite the same comparison, but it's still the same thing.
But
it's the notion. You see, this is funny. I mean, proving the supernatural in some ways would make it stop being supernatural. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think the reason that the notion of God, I think, holds enough power, the kind of power that it does over the minds and the imaginations of people, is that I think it's because He is sort of not provable scientifically or empirically.
Yeah.
And so
they want to keep it that way.
So He gets to be above this sort of mundane scientific process. And this allows you to just sort of believe whatever you want about Him too, and not have to come up with evidence. But then it all boils down to, then what sort of person are you? Are you a rationalist where you're very strict about, I gotta have evidence for good solid evidence for stuff? I think we lost him. Do we gotta have good solid evidence for stuff? Or is it okay to just take fanciful notions on faith if those notions appeal to us on an emotional level or on a gut level?
Yeah.
And generally speaking, atheists are, they're rationalists. We're not the kind of people who look, even though we admit that there might be comforting things about certain supernatural belief systems, we tend to think it's healthier to just kind of face reality and stick with what we can prove and what we can observe and
deal with our problems in a realistic day-to-day way rather than just saying, well, God will take care of it.
Yeah. So anyway, Joseph is on line 1, and apparently we've got a couple other lines lit up too, but we don't know anything about it. Hey, you're on the air.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Hey, it's been about 2 years since I've viewed your program, and I think Martin was on back then, but actually I haven't seen him before.
Yep.
Yeah.
But anyhow, I think the program has improved. I mean, it's much more, let's say, welcoming of debate or whatever, than whatever. Instead of before, it used to get into shouting matches and so forth.
Yeah. Well, we try to we play hardball here, but we try to play it fairly.
Yeah, I appreciate your program very much.
Yeah, I mean, thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Yeah. What I would like to bring up, and I have read the literature, and I do have some advanced degrees.
Good.
The one area that they have not been able to bridge so far using the scientific method, and that is to go from inanimate matter to a living organism. For example, bacteria being one of the simplest living organisms, one-cell organism. Now, if you are you familiar at all with information theory?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, information theory, just briefly, like if you flip a coin and you don't know whether it ended up heads or tails, but somebody else knows how it ended up, they have information that you don't have, and that amounts to 1 bit of information, BIT, 1 bit of information.
Right.
And you can extract. Well, anyhow, when you look at it, look at the DNA of bacteria. It turns out it has about 8 million bits of information. That's 8 million bits of information in the DNA, and that allows the bacteria to know how to divide and become 2 separate cells, and so forth and so on. Okay. So when you go inanimate matter, on the other hand, you're familiar with the word genome.
Yes.
Genome, okay. The genome is just the total collection of all the chromosomes and the DNA within the chromosomes.
Yeah.
Okay. If inanimate matter has 0 bits of genetic information, and the simplest life form, which is a cell, has 8 million bits of genetic information. Now that chasm is something that they have not been able to bridge. A long time ago, Professor, what was his name, Miller, in the university.
Are you talking about the Miller-Urey experiment?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We're getting down to our last 2.5 minutes, so I just we'll go ahead and touch on just a couple of points briefly. The argument that you're making, I think, is the one that's championed by William Dembski, is it not?
No, by the way, I don't want to come across as a creationist.
No.
No,
but I was wondering if you.
This is my own. This is my own from my own reading.
Okay.
And believe me, I spent all the.
I'm sure you have
years studying this.
But it's a similar information. Dembski makes a similar information theory argument. I was just wondering if
I have not read anything about.
It's interesting.
Dembski or whatever his name is.
Yeah, Dembski. He is one of the intelligent design leaders.
Well, I know what intelligent design is, and I think.
But he approaches it from the information theory perspective because he's a mathematician. And I was just wondering if you had read some of his theories, and then if you had read any of his critics too. I was just wondering if you had.
Like I said.
Yeah.
No, I don't think anybody has made this particular.
Well, that's possible. That could be a good thing that we could touch on.
I don't know exactly. When you're talking about going from bacteria, let's say, to a chimpanzee, you're talking about going from 8 million bits of information to 12 billion bits of information.
Right.
Yeah.
But what I'm talking about is going from 0 bits of information, which is inanimate matter, to a self-replicating cell.
Okay. Well, that could be. Look, we're into our last minute now, so we got to. But we got to go. But tell you what, that could be an interesting thing to
start off next week.
To start off next week with, and we'll try to get some information on that because you're right. Again, scientists don't know 100% of everything, and there are still things that we have yet to learn about life and the universe that we live in. But remember, just because science hasn't got all answers to everything right now doesn't mean that the current scientific theory is invalid, and it doesn't mean that we should throw it all out the window and say, oh, well, God must have done it then.
Yeah.
Because that's just God of the gaps. But, look at the talkorigins.org website because they have some of Dembski's mathematical arguments and the rebuttals to those. And we're done. Thanks, Ashley. Thanks, everybody. Hey, theists, we love you.